agency in military, in civic and diplomatic roles, enhances this visibility and influence, making evident that such women exist and actually they managed, being a nice example to many others for action. Also, another respondent told about breaking down barriers, fostering this inclusiveness of such agency in decision making and resilience building. And actually, it also made me think about possible prerequisites of such long-term transformation, even without efforts and support from the state. So, how can we sustain this process at grassroots level using the only tool we actually have, activism and research activism. So, but most important thing here is, of course, and always legal reforms, European Union integration with exact and clear plans on which indicators should we aim to achieve, and women-led civil society organizations institutionalized against which reduces this risk of post-war and actually during the war regression in gender equality. As another respondent told, we have to show more strong and diverse women inspiring this kind of leadership and equality. And finally, I would add a perspective of male activists, and actually I took my personal risk to include men in feminist theory as well. And logic behind this idea was to show that vulnerability of men are also challenged and actually increased as the whole burden of war, not all, but the main burden of war was put on men, meaning that this category remain under investigated just because but this feminist theory were focused on females and LGBTQIA. So first of all, the most evident thing is hypermasculine expectations from men who should serve and who should voluntarily mobilize to remain this proper man, true Ukrainian, true Cossack, true Khyber, and many hyper normatives behind this properness of being the part of this collective effort. And again, we come back to the laws which restrict men aged under 60 years old from leaving country, framing them as the natural protectors and actually only protectors. And this ideal of Cossack Khyber glorifies heroic and heterosexual masculinity, narrowing male identity, which is also diverse. The next block of factors are drivers of mobilization, because nearly much more, of course, but according to data on 2022, nearly 1 million men were enlisted, driven by desire to protect, desire to fulfill this obligation, getting or driven by duty, by guilt, by survivor syndrome and peer pressure of their families and peers actually who were expecting from men being at the front line. Also, non-combatants face stigma as false men, pushing civilian roles like crowdfunding as effective way to contribute as to less visible and less appreciated positions. So it is still better than doing nothing, but it could be compared in this public perception with voluntarily mobilization to enlist into armed forces, which this creates several psychological and societal social strains. First of all, combat endurance and trauma challenge invincibility, but stigma discourages vulnerability, and anxiety and guilt with prevalent disorders in psychological sphere, weakening this community cohesion, specifically among those who were enlisted. But at the same time, All of this reinforces patriarchy in traditions, in norms, and actually the section arena goes far beyond these tiny spaces of collective action because it becomes a new norm, properly reconfigured and fixed. So gender selective mobilization elevates these male-led civil society organizations, for example, Serhii Pritula Foundation, gaining more donations and trust, according to Open Data Board, rather than same female organizations with the same capacities, capabilities, with the same actually starting points, with the same social media and the same communities. That is how men dominate visible military and political roles, again reinforcing these patriarchal structures. Uh, Emerging inclusivity, which is also one of trends born during the war, that male volunteers in female roles also appears, for example, Vivinets with females, signal much broader acceptance of diverse identity than it was before the full-scale invasion. And also the civic engagement and mere existence of the section arena and periods of its openness or their openness fosters this participatory masculinity, expanding these traditional roles of just protector of others. And finally, it is social political impact of such collective action and operation of such action arenas, meaning that war of course, reinforces militarized masculinity and hypermasculinity, but at the same time sparks conversation on vulnerability and inclusion. And but at the same time, evolving male roles offer a chance to finally redefine this masculinity for greater equality for all actors of action arena and actually all people living, acting or non-acting together. And concluding, I would put six main outtakes from this research. That first of all is that wartime situation exposes how this severe, stressful existential crisis not only reflect but can actively reconfigure gender hierarchies and these build national narratives from grassroots level. And another one is that identity-driven and aggression-responsive mobilization, voluntarily mobilization by women and LGBTQI actors really challenge these masculinist norms and embeds gender diversity into national defense discourse. Also, digitalized local activism, again, these digital action arenas aligned with European Union integration goals, they act as in a kind of incubator for turning crisis-induced gender progress into some um, sustained or institutionalized norms. Also, that contributions of men, women, and LGBTQI individuals showcase to everyone interested a more pluralistic model of national defense and democratic adaptability. And but to avoid the problem we were starting this discussion, historical reversion of achieved gender progress post-crisis, gender gains must be embedded in law, in policy, and civil society through continuous multi-level effort. Because without that, risk of rollback, on my opinion, still remain high. And finally, the last insight that LGBTQI and feminist organizations became probably the only, or at least a very critical gender lens, pushing against patriarchal simplifications and ensuring this gender inclusive national identity formation. That's it. I'm done. Thank you so much for attention.
Thank you very much, Olga. This is really super interesting. It's always like when listening to such topics, you somehow realize the bubble you're in and how little you actually really know about these issues and how like really this civic engagement is connected to building resilient and inclusive society. So thank you very much to give to all of us this new yeah, I guess really new information and food for thought. Yeah, thank you. And this would leave us now still with the opportunity for questions, but for the questions, we will stop the recording so that there is no, that the questions are not recorded anymore. And I will give the